Hey guys, it's Troy here with another pen video, and wanted to talk a little bit first. I've been wanting to for a little while, and wanted to share a couple of perspectives about pens, and it was really reinforced to me after this next pen that I want to show you today. Well, my experiences so far in collecting are probably a lot different than a lot of folks. That doesn't mean that I don't cover some of the same materials or have some of the same experiences or even information. But what it does mean is I arrive there to different conclusions, maybe some of the same conclusions circuitously from a different method of getting there. So my experiences are going to be different from everybody else's, but maybe to the same endpoint on a few things. One of the things is it's not always the most expensive pen that's going to be the best. It's not going to be the most coveted pen that's going to be your favorite from a particular manufacturer or era even. Today's pen is one of those kinds of deals. And one of the things about my channel, and I've been thinking about my channel an awful lot in what I bring for material, it's different than a lot of the guys who've got a lot more viewers than I have. And I'll be honest with you, I'm not going to specialize on just old pens or just new pens. But I do have a great appreciation, probably more so than a lot of guys, for some of the vintage pens that are out there. And I try to bring you both. And I just have a desire to pick up some of the older ones and experience them. I want a breadth of flavor. You know, I don't want to go 1 inch deep but a mile wide. I would like to go fairly deep and fairly wide together. And, you know, in the 425 or so cataloged pens that I've got in my collection, which is far smaller than others and a lot more than some, you know, I've got my own preferences. And I've learned that I like and have a great appreciation for the pens that are in history. And when I say that there are some pens that are on the high end that you'll love, I've got pens that are more than a mortgage payment, and I absolutely love them. I've got some that are more than a mortgage payment, and then some that you go, you know, it wasn't as much as I thought it was going to be, or as good as I thought it was going to be. Let me give you a couple of good examples. Watermen 58. I first saw a Watermen 58 at a pen show. I already loved Red Ripple from Watermen from the 1920s era. Absolutely loved them. And this is one that I coveted for a while. And great big old number 8 nib. It's a flex nib. And this is worth a good amount of money compared to this Watermen 58 that I got from the exact same seller. This one has a rigid nib or a manifold nib, and it's kind of beat up by comparison. You know, there's no, that's probably not an original cap. There's no clip on it, and most of the chasing, if it was originally chased, seems to be either worn down or it was more of a smooth. Either way, it doesn't match. This one probably costs 3 or 4 times what this one does. But you know what? I like this one better. This one writes better. This one is a dream to write with. One of my favorite pens of all time in my collection is this one right here. And it was a surprise to me. I didn't think it was going to be that great. But I got this one, you know, and I thought, this is going to be my Grail pen. One of my first Grail pens. And, you know, it's a great pen, but it's not my favorite. This, even though it's a little well-worn, she's not the prettiest gal at the dance, but she's a great, great pen. I feel that same way about some of the Parkers that are in my collection. Now, when you want to talk about vintage Parkers, what do people want to collect? You know, I kept hearing from people at pen shows and online and different forums, you got to get a Parker 51 in your collection. You got to have a Parker 51 in your collection. Oh, okay. So I got one. Actually, we got several in the house. Even my son Matthew has a Parker 51. And, you know, great pens. There's one right there. I had it restored. It's a really good pen. I can understand why people like them so much. Decent pens. Well, I've got other Parker 51s don't like quite as much. Just recently I bought a desk set. Good looking desk set. A couple of Parker 51s. Just got them. I'm talking within the last week and a half. They don't write so great. I'm going to have to get these worked on. Beautiful pens. Not impressed. A little disappointed, quite honestly. Parker 45. Good pen. Got a desk set. Parker 45. And it's got a beautiful marble base to it. It's okay. I like better than that, though, a Parker 45 Flighter. That's a decent writing pen. Kind of like it. Not the prettiest gal at the dance, but she's better than some of the other Parker 45s. And Parker 45s are never been at the high end or the most coveted. You're going to find that a lot of the Eversharps, after Eversharp was acquired by Parker, the 10,000 word pen was kind of a Parker 45 knockoff. The Big E, same way. I got a couple of Big E's and I got a 10,000 word pen. They're basically the Eversharp version of the Parker 45. Well, Parker 61 is one that I picked up. And overall, she's a good looking pen. I like the size of it. She ain't the prettiest gal at the dance, you know. And she's not the most coveted. She wouldn't be head cheerleader, put it that way. But you know what? I think of all my Parkers that I've got, even the Vacuumatics and even some of the dual folds that I've got in my collection, this may turn out to be probably my favorite Parker. It's got a few dings. I mean, you look at it, she's not in perfect condition. She's got some dings on the cap that you can see right there. There's a ding somewhere here on the barrel. Little bit of wear to it. But you know what? It's a great writing pen. It fits great in my hand. It feels good. It actually still looks pretty good. You know, it's almost like a Monet painting. They look great from a distance, and as you get closer and closer, you notice that, you know, it's just a bunch of dots, and it doesn't look all that great. Well, I can pick up all the imperfections, but those imperfections still, what a great pen. I think Parker 61 was actually an improvement on the 51s. That's just my opinion. But they're not the most coveted. They're not the ones that collectors go, you gotta have a Parker 61. No, they want you to have a Parker 51 in your collection. Like I said, great pen. Nothing wrong with the 51s. I like them. The 61 so far, though, I got to admit, is probably my favorite in my collection. I picked this one up from England. This is actually an English-made Parker 61. And it got shipped to me, and it took less time to get to me from England than some packages being delivered from only 700 miles away that the U.S. Postal Service took their sweet time lately in delivering. So, little disappointed in the USPS, and fairly impressed on how quickly I actually got this one shipped to me from across the pond in jolly old England. So, Parker 61, not a bad pen. You may not be able to see it here, but I definitely have some better pictures. It says Parker right there on the cap. It also has 61 right into the gold-filled finish, and it's got "Made in England" on it. Much like the Parker 51s, you've got a nice tapered section, and it comes down to a very similar type of nib, a hooded nib. I know I've got better pictures than that. Now, the one thing about this particular pen, and I'll tell you what, I'll read it to you, and I'll read it to you from parkerpens.net. Great resource for the Parker penography. If you're looking for information on Parker pens, this is probably the single greatest resource that I found so far dedicated just to Parker pens. Parker 61 page on the parkerpens.net. This particular one, and they came in all different colors, they came in different ages, but this was the Insignia model, Parker 61 Insignia, also called the Jet Fighter, also called the Signet, from 1958 through about 1980s. And come 1969 or so, they made a change in their production. I was but in diapers at the time, 1969, that the legendary capillary filling system was discontinued in favor of the Mark III, which is a cartridge converter filled pen, in the manner of the Parker 45. I mentioned the Parker 45, and Parker 45, very different style of nib, but you're going to find that on these, you've got a squeeze converter. Pilot Metropolitans, you probably have gotten some of those with a squeeze converter. You know, it's not, so it's an aerometric style. You're going to find that on this as well, you've got the same concept of an aerometric filler that came with it. So you've got that push bar, so you've got the sac, an ink sac in here with a bar that you press down to fill it. I'm not going to do it because I have it inked up and I don't feel like getting ink everywhere. But that is a converter. It is not a permanent built on to that particular pen. On Parker 45s, when I go to clean them, I take that right off, and it cleans up very nicely. But it was a cartridge converter filled pen in the manner of the Parker 45. The Capillary 61 was one of the last Parker models that didn't take converters. The inner cap was also redesigned in 1969, but the new design proved catastrophic since it fit so snug to the section that it sometimes scratched the inlaid arrow or even dislocated it. Yep, that is the case here. I'll show you some better pictures, but you may be able to see that right there. There's supposed to be a little Parker insignia right there that got dislodged from the pen. Apparently it was pretty common. Hey, I just had my car worked on, and the problem that we had was a very common problem. The dealership sold a lot of those parts, so it was a known issue. Same thing with pens. So it sometimes scratched the inlaid arrow or even dislocated it, like it did here. And the connector was now in black plastic, and the barrel threads are also different. So, at least it was good to read. I mean, when I saw the condition of the pen, it cost me about 20 bucks. Now, of course, shipping from England to the United States, a little more than I wanted to pay, but still, okay, call it like $34 shipped. But you know what? That's a pretty doggone $34 investment, if I do say so, because in terms of enjoyment so far, it's been a great, reliable, great writing, great smooth pen for me. So, my advice, when you're looking at pens, you know, and this might have been advice for in life in general. In my life, I've gone out with girls that a lot of guys wouldn't give a second look, but they've turned out to be really good women. Or, the more you get to know them, the prettier that they get. You get to know them really well, you discover how beautiful they really are. I find that sometimes with pens. Much like I showed you, not the most glamorous Watermen 58, but it's the better writing 58. Parker 51, not bad, but you know, Parker 45 that I've got, I kind of like a little bit better. This Parker 61, probably my favorite Parker of them all. So, I'll show you a few more pictures. As long as I'm here, I may throw in a few statistics. It's considered vintage because it's old enough. It's no longer in production. You know, they ceased production somewhere in the 1980s. This pen was probably made because of the problem, the 1969 issue where it knocked off that that little arrow insignia off from the section. I'll probably date this pen from probably 1969 forward. That's my guess, maybe around that era. And considering that I'm getting all kinds of mail from AARP, maybe I'm also considered an antique at this point as well. But I'll throw out some statistics for you on this particular pen. It's definitely something you might want to consider putting into your collection and looking for, and you might be surprised at the quality that you can find if you go a different model than everybody else is going gaga or nuts over. But let's take a break and I'll show you how it writes. Alright, I showed you the Parker 51 desk set just for grins because I haven't shown this yet on my channel. I thought I'd show you this desk set that I saw, and it was a decent price, I thought, considering there were two restored Parker 51s, albeit they write horribly right now. But they operate, they just don't write it anywhere near like I'd like them. But this was the desk set that I thought was a very attractive desk set, and I was going to put here on my desk, and this is what they look like. This little trumpet, it doesn't quite hold the pens quite like this one does, but I do like the way Parker designed them in that these are magnetic on a ball, and they do rotate. They do work fairly well when it comes to that. I've got a Parker 45 desk set that's kind of the same way. But it's an attractive piece, and I figured for the price, since it came with two pens that were both Parker 51s, I'd give it a shot. So if I can ever get these two to write very well, then that's what will be sitting on my desk. Let's go ahead and move that out of the way. I'll move this out of the way. During my monologue earlier, I mentioned the Eversharp 10,000 word pen. This particular Rhodia dot pad, that's the last time I used it, is when I did the video on that particular pen. I didn't know that until I just opened up this. I just grabbed a pad off the shelf, and that's the one I happened to grab. So, anyway, my Parker 61. It does post very nicely, and securely, and deeply. That baby's not going anywhere. And posted, it fits very nicely. I like the balance of the 61 and how it feels in my hand. So very pleased with that. And this has been my pen of the day today. I just got it fairly recently, and I've been using it and just enjoying it. So let's put this nib through a few paces here. A Parker 61. Circa 1969. That's what I'm going to call it anyway, according to whatever reading that I was able to do. And you've got that hooded nib. And it is very smooth. I like this pen. I think this is probably my favorite Parker in my entire collection. When I first inked this bad boy up, I was like, this is cool. This is a great pen. Good writing pen. I did throw into this some old, or at least an old standby, some Watermen Serenity Blue. Not the wettest writing, but you know, this is a fine nib, probably a hair, not quite on the medium side, but it is a fine, definitely not an extra fine. So I would say this is a fine nib, and I am just really happy. Hasn't given me the first bit of problem. Hasn't given me really the first skip. Hasn't given me the first hard start since I've had it, and I've been carrying it around in my pocket. I've had it here on my desk. I've taken it out numerous times, and every single time, every stroke, going that way is a little hard because it's a horrible angle for me. Downstroke is great, upstroke. Great writing pen. Excellent. Definitely my favorite Parker of all the Parker pens I've got. Yeah, and believe me, I like Parker as a brand on some of their older pens. And the 51's a good pen. My 45 Flighter is a good pen. My 45 desk set was halfway decent. I really love my Vacuumatic, but I think this one, there's two dings right there in that cap. Like I said, not the prettiest girl, a little beat up, but doggone, she writes great. That's, to me, the important thing. Yes, collectability. If you're looking at it as a collector and you're looking for intrinsic value, maybe not your first choice. But if you're looking for a writer grade pen, they just might surprise you. Keep that in mind. It's all about your philosophy in collecting. I've got some pens in my collection just because they're worth a decent amount. They're sought after. They were a Grail purchase, and I value them highly. But they're not necessarily the ones that I reach for when I want to go right. When I decide that, my go-to pen that I feel like if I had to clean it out recently and try to rotate it out and just put it away because I got other pens I really should be using instead and making it my go-to day in day out writer, then I break down and go, man, I missed that pen. I want to break it out. And I did that here recently with my Watermen 58. I mean, I just brought this one out and inked it up just because I missed it. Just because I knew that I would enjoy writing with it once again when I inked it up. And this is going to be another one of those pens that I go, I've got a handful of them that are my go-to pens, and I think this may join that rank. And I can probably count on one hand how many pens that I put into that category. So far, this is probably going to be in the top 5 of my go-to pens. So my Parker 61, circa 1969 or so, manufactured up through the 1980s. So great addition, and a great surprise to me. So. All right, guys, thanks for watching. I appreciate y'all that you would take the time to watch my paltry little channel.